The QPR Podcast Live is supported by bwin, who are offering 5-1 that QPR will bounce straight back with promotion to the Premier League. For more QPR and football odds, go to bwin.com.
QPR, QPR, Kilburn Rangers are on the up and up. QPR, QPR, now we're heading for European Cup.
Welcome to QPR Podcast Live at the Good Ship in Kilburn. Thank you very much, everyone here. If you're listening at home, on your way to work, wherever you're listening, we are here in a fantastic venue in Kilburn, packed with QPR fans, and we have with us a very special guest. We've got our usual podcast regulars. I'm David Fraser. Got Paul Finney from Indiars. This is where you say hello.
Oh, hello.
We have Chris Charles from BT Sport.
Hello.
We have Chris Mendes from ITV Sport.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest. We have a rare man who is responsible for good times at QPR. Probably two in recent years. It's not Bobby Zamora, so it must be the other one.
Oh, he's on form tonight.
Thanks.
You rocked that, didn't you, all day?
So we are delighted to introduce the architect of Queen's Park Rangers' return to the Premier League after 15 years, back in 2011. Give it up for Neil Warnock.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. Neil, thank you for joining us. We'll start with a nice, easy question for you. Everybody here wants to know, when are they going to get a reply to their email?
Yeah. Well, as I said just previously, I was looking through this morning in my office. I've got a massive box full of these emails, and I was going to do them all when I retired, but every time I retire, I keep getting another job. And my wife, finally said, look, enough's enough. So I'm sure that I will get round to it. I have sent one or two back, if I'm honest. But it wasn't like you could do a standard reply thanking them for their email. Most of the emails that I had, and we're talking thousands now, by the way. We're not talking a few hundred. We're talking between 4,000 and 5,000, and most of them have actually got a story behind the email. The dad wanted to see the QPR back in the Premier League and passed away, and all sorts of things that you couldn't just reply on a standard reply. They need an individual. So, I will get round. I saw the signed shirt on the top of it, so I thought, well, as a bit of a peace message, I'll bring that to the meeting tonight and let you auction that off.
So people can still expect a reply?
I think they will. If I live long enough, they can expect a reply, yeah, because it is hard work, but like I said, most of them, it's not just a few lines. It would have to be a letter, really, to most of them, because they really need answering in depth. But it's not something. When I look at those emails and the number of them and the quantity, it's that what really makes my job enjoyable, if I'm honest. Most people here knows what kind of situation the club was in when I came to the club. And, we could have got relegated to the second division, or the first division as it is then, when I came. And to turn it around like we did, and then probably one of the most enjoyable seasons in my lifetime, and to do it in a way that I've never actually experienced in my career, by working with certain players gone, and trying to build a system around individuals, at the same time trying to keep the club moving with, should I say, owners that were a little bit up and down, and trying to keep the happy medium. I'm sure everybody's seen the 4-year plan. Well, that was a good version. I remember going to Scunthorpe Barnsley weekend, and we lost 4-1, I think it was, at Scunthorpe, and I had Flavio on the phone and, oh, coach, what are we doing? We'll get relegated. We will never get another point. And going on. And then Bernie rang me and I said, look, Bernie, you've just got to trust me. We've come this far. I know what I'm doing. You will get upsets. That's the league. But how can the bottom of the league beat the top of the league? So quite easy at this level. But it's what I do next week and the week after, and we'll still get promotion. So calm down. And he said, well, just don't take any bloody notice of him. He said he goes off like that.
How do you reflect on your time at QPR now?
Nothing but happiness, really. It was a fabulous time. I love living in Richmond. I like the training ground. I know it's not the best, condition, and I know that they've been looking since then. We made a lot of inquiries to try and get training ground, but it was just the atmosphere. It needed a little bit of a lift. I never forget the first day at the training ground where. When I go to a club, I always have a match between the players, and I usually tell them to put the pads on and have 11 aside or a small-sided game. And this particular game, we had an 11 aside game for half an hour, and the coaches were telling me, I didn't even know some of the names, and the coaches with him, that's who he is and that's who he is. And there's a lad here with gloves on. In bloody, whenever I took over, it was warm anyhow, I know that, but he had gloves on. And I said, who's that? And the coach said, that's Taarabt. He will get you the sack. He says, he will get you the sack. The first job you've got to do, Gaffer, is get rid of him. And so the game, somebody got injured, I can't remember what it was, a physio come on, and I shouted him over to me. I said, Adel, how are you? Very good, thank you, sir. I said, I've been told you're going to get me the sack. Me? No, me. I'm nice, I'm okay, I like the training, blah, blah. I says, well, we've got, I don't know how many games we had left, probably, 10, 11, 12, something like that. I said, right, well, let me tell you now, son. I said, when did you play last? The manager didn't play, I don't. I said, right, well, I'm telling you now, I'm going to play you on Saturday, and if you have a stinker, do you know what a stinker is? Poor? Bad? Do you know if you have a bad game on Saturday? Do you understand? He said, yes. If you have a bad game on Saturday, I'm going to play you the next Saturday. And I'm going to play you the following Saturday. I'm going to play you every game between now and the end of the season, and you're going to keep me up. Do you understand? He said, yes, I do understand, but the manager doesn't play me. I said, well, I'm the manager now, and I'm going to play you. All right? So you're playing, unless you get injured, till the summer. And that's how I got Adel, and it was very difficult, I'm sure I managed to write a book, which I actually got it included in the QPR time, called The Gaffer, and it was great to, the following season to get senior pros like Derry, Clint Hill, I can't even remember his name. What was the not Paddy Kenny, the striker? Come on, the Icelandic. Helgason. Oh, don't forget I'm 66 now, so the memory's going a bit.
Your man.
But he was absolutely unbelievable, was Haider. And I got them all together and just said to him, look, I'm going to go with Adel this season, and it's going to be very traumatic for some of you guys. I said, but I've made a decision. I've never had a player like him in any of my teams, and I understand where the previous managers have not wanted to play him, but I've got a feeling about this kid, and he's got something that we haven't got, and I think in this league, if we can use him as the icing on the cake, but you guys have got to be behind me. Every one of you guys could be captain, but you're not going to be captain because Adel's going to be captain. And if I can get 10% more out of Adel because he's captain, that 10% will get us promotion. So you've got to trust me, and that's how it came about. Really, there were one or two moments. I think I can't remember where it were now, at Hull, where Adel asked to come off, and they were shouting at me, Gaffer, he wants to come off. I said, well, you can leave him on. He's going to stop on here, because he just got kicked a little bit. And we did persevere, and he gave us some brilliant moments. Probably the best goal probably not the best goal in my career, but the most enjoyable goal for me was against Leicester City at home, where he nonchalantly, with the outside of his boot from the dugout, just played it into Wayne Routledge's. He took it in one touch and put it past him, and I just thought that epitomised him. Really, he was. At Cardiff, where everybody expected us to get battered. His 2 goals were the difference there, and it was just a great. But we did have some traumatic times where he didn't try at certain games, and I had to do things. But it was one of those battles for me that was worth it in the end, because the good times outweighed the bad times. And when you've got your basic players like your Derry and your Hills and your Paddy Kennett and that, you know that you've got your base, and then you let your icing on the cake. Continue. So fabulous times for me then.
Why do you think none of the managers since you have managed to get the best out of Adel? I mean, this season particularly. The thing is, we don't know what's going on. Harry Redknapp saying he's too fat, and the next minute he's in the Daily Mail showing off his six-pack, or at least sucking his tummy in, whichever one you want to believe. I know we've had a bad season, but I think an Adel on fire in the same way that you got him on fire would have helped keep us up. So why do you think no one else?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult on a bad day to cater for Adel at the top level and the Championship. Really, you've got to have a system, I think, to suit him. The system with the one up front, you've really got to give him a free role. People have tried to play him wide, and he can't do that job. So if you don't play him in that free role, and if you play him in that free role, you've got to have pace out wide to get behind, which Jemmy Mackey, I thought, had a good season. Even Hogan did well for us as well that year. So I think it's just... when I took him from Tottenham... I'm sure Harry won't mind me saying so. When he played like he did for me, I remember seeing Harry, and I don't know how the hell you've got that out of him. Because his ability was never in question, but it's just how you fit him in to a system, and you've got to love him. It's no good, rollicking him, and the things. I got phone calls at middle of the night telling me, one day he was out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I pulled him in thinking he'd be apologetic, and, Adel, 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 days before a game. I said, can you imagine if the directors knew about that? And he said, Gaffer, I don't drink. I go home in the afternoon after training. I go to sleep for 6 hours. Then I get up. And then I go out. But I don't drink. I thought, Jesus wept, it's right here, isn't it? So it was a new learning curve for me. I thought, bloody hell, he's right. So I said to Mick Jones, I'm going to go out with him next time.
The thing is, you could say you're indulging him, but why has nobody else? Did you think everyone else has just refused? Because you don't strike me as the sort of person who would tolerate fools gladly, but you obviously went out of your way to accommodate Adel. I know you had him round for tea at your house as well, didn't you? He got on really well with your kids.
It's just a smashing lad. What shame it is for me is that when he went to Italy, he did well at Italy, but he couldn't maintain the standards off the field as he did on the field, and so the opportunity of going to a club like that didn't materialise. And if he'd have looked after himself off the field, he would have been, I think, a big hit in Italy, where I think his style of play is suited better. That's the one big regret. I'm glad that I've got a season out of him for the fans that saw that season to know exactly what he can do. And because I always said to him, when you leave me, Adel, that's your career done. Because I said nobody else will bloody tolerate what I have to tolerate.
Neil, you mentioned Sean Derry, Clint Hill, those type of characters that you brought in when you were in charge. Do you think the club have done enough to bring in honest players like that since you've left?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? I think if Tony, the chairman, well, I'm sure if he was asked, 6 months after I left or a year after I left, he'd probably say we should. He'd had a bit more experience and stuck with what we've got. But it's difficult when you've got agents in your ear telling him this thing's like best thing since sliced bread, and that's no good, and you've got to do this, you've got to do that. it's difficult when you're in that bottom half of the table and you get influenced, and these guys do influence you. I think if the same people talk to Tony now, he wouldn't give them the time of day. But it's like anything else. These people promise you utopia, and football's not like that. And so it's been a long, hard learning curve, really, for Tony. But he is a nice guy, and he's put a lot of money in, and he's sometimes he's probably trusted the wrong people at times, and you can't fault him for that, really.
It's obviously a massive job for Chris Ramsey in the Championship next season. You've got bags of experience in that league, and he hasn't got any. How difficult is it going to be for him?
It's not going to be easy because the Championship's such a long, hard slog, isn't it? Let's be fair. It's not. Even the Premiership, you've got weeks where you can coach, and Chris is a top coach. I asked Chris to come with me at Palace this year. Early on, I want him to be my first team coach because I think he's got a lot of attributes and he's a great guy. But management's different, so he'll have to adapt to the other side of management because you can't be a nice guy all the time as a manager. So it'll be interesting, but it's not easy, the Championship. It's one of the most difficult leagues, I think, you can enter without a lot of experience. So it's going to need a bit of luck and a bit of help, but it'll get the support. I think that they've decided at last to let's give somebody a chance and a support. But I think first and foremost, the club's got to try and steady the ship and not end up like a Wolves and a Sheffield United and a Leeds and plummet to the next level. And it's not going to be easy, so make no mistake, I don't think they'll come straight back up, and I think it needs a lot of hard work behind the scenes. And if I can help, Chris, I'm always on the end of a phone, because I do think, I still think a lot about the club. I was disappointed, if I'm honest. Last year I wanted to come back against Huddersfield, I think it was, two of my old clubs, because I thought, I've got to pick my club because I don't want the bastards booing me on the other end, So I thought, right, Huddersfield seemed a good one. So I remember ringing up Phil Beard at the time and saying, I want to come to that game. Could I go onto the pitch at half-time and just say thank you, to the fans? Because I never really got a chance to say thank you to anybody. And I never expected a problem, And so I rang Harry. Harry says, of course you can. I should think you bloody do. You deserve a medal for what you did and all that. Harry was great. And they come back to me and said, it's a little bit awkward, Neil, at the moment. And so I said, forget it then. And even though a week later one of the young ladies rang me and said, Neil, we would think it is okay, we'd like you to come. I said, no, it's all right, darling, I'll come another time. And that's the only time I've been disappointed, really, because I haven't really had a chance to say goodbye to any of them, and it is a great atmosphere, isn't it, at Loftus Road. So it's hopefully next year I'll be able to pop back one day.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure we'd love to see you down there for a game next season.
Yeah,
and I'm sure the club are listening to this podcast, so make it happen.
What I was going to say to you, Neil, when we were at Watford and it was all going mad and Smith and we all know what happened, did you then think that we would go on to beat that other lot down the road? And
which other lot's that?
The lot that you nearly took a job with.
Paul can't say it. I'll say it. Chelsea.
Oh, Chelsea. Right, okay. Well, I mean, the first thing I remember, from my point of view, I remember Amit telling me his father would give me £1 million if we beat Chelsea. I said, can I have it in writing? We beat Chelsea 1-0, and I looked up at Amit, I went like that. But it's not arrived yet. I'm sure it'll be on its way. But it was great to pit your wits against these guys, and I felt on a decent day with everything was difficult for us, what with it's so difficult to we got promotion. I had 6-7 players. I had Ashley Williams in my house. I had Danny Graham who went on there. I had 2 or 3 defenders. I had a couple of strikers.
This was the transfer window?
Straight after, after the end of the season. Right. In the next 6 weeks. And every time I asked Flavio if I could sign these guys, the answer was no. And he said, we're not signing anybody because we're going to sell the club. And so all the players that I thought, the right type of players, as somebody mentioned earlier, bringing the right type to the club, I didn't want to change it drastically. And so these players all wanted to commit themselves, all wanted to come to the club, and I couldn't sign any of them. And then I had to ring him up and say, I'm sorry, and you'll have to go somewhere else, and good luck to you. And that was a disappointing thing for me. And then because Tony didn't take over until well into August, and then it was sort of whoever was left. And do the best you can, and that's not the way to do it, really. The way to do it is, get promotion, get 2 or 3 players in straight away, and build your side. And we were never really in that position, which that did disappoint me, really. That.
Did you feel hard done by when you were sacked?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because I felt that. We'd won 3 away games before Christmas. Bloody hell! I don't think you've won 3 since I left. What really bugged me is the fact that the games up to me getting the sack were very, very difficult. And there was a run of about 8 games coming up where we said, come on, let's dip us bread now. We can buy another couple of good players first week in January, and we can have a real go at these teams. And never got the opportunity to that. To see somebody coming in and playing the lesser sides was disappointing for me, really. But it's football, and you've just got to get on with it,
Going back a wee bit to the Chelsea game, the 1-0. What was it like for you as a manager? The atmosphere we remember was pretty electric. It was mad because we haven't played them so and so for so long. We didn't like them. I don't know if you noticed.
No, I know. I mean, I don't think they like us really either.
Oh, really? So what really happened? Come on.
No, I mean it was things happening all the time, wasn't it? I mean the sending offs were unreal. If anything, it actually stabilised them really, because at half time we said let's have a go at them, let's change it, have a go at them. We never touched the ball against 9 men. Second half, so it was but the commitment was fantastic, and to beat Chelsea was incredible, and it was I thought it was great. Like I said, the 3 away games. I thought Everton, after getting beat 4 against Bolton and all the, that was Tony's first game. He must have thought, bloody hell. So after getting beaten 4 at Bolton at home, to go up to Everton and play so well and win, and then Wolves, then Stoke, which weren't easy, was it, Stoke, to get 3 away wins, and I did think I deserved a little bit of more of a chance. But
what would you have done differently, do you think, to change things? Do you think if they give you more time, you could have? You could have held us in that league.
Well, I just think that January was the opportunity. I thought I'd earned that for getting us up, and we were never in the bottom 3, and for keeping us up there, and only being able to buy players at the last minute. Last rush, we had either 3 or 4 players in different executive boxes on deadline evening. A new chief exec who Phil Beard, bless him, who's a lovely man, who'd just come from the O2. It was just like
that night.
It was just like a Brian Ricks farce, and the young people in here won't remember them. But we're going from box to box, trying to get people signed. It was unreal, really, and it wasn't the way to do business. So it was just a matter of trying to learn as you went on, and we could have stabilised things a lot better, I think, if we'd have been able to, bring 1 or 2 players in early January, and I've no doubt that we could stay up. I was surprised that it was, almost went to the last game, because I thought, it would have been safe quite a while before that, if I'm honest.
Well, you speak about having to buy those signings so quick. It was a bit like a supermarket sweep trolley dash, wasn't it, really?
It was, yeah.
Is there any
I'll tell you the one I was really disappointed in, and I was desperate to sign Scott Parker. I thought we just needed a calming influence in there, a good pro, just for that first season to, and I spoke to Scott, and he said yes, he'd definitely come if Tottenham didn't come in for him. And at that time, Daniel Levy wasn't letting Harry sign anybody at that age. He didn't want to waste money on it, older players. So, it went. It looked like we could sign him. Tony were really keen. It was Tony's idea. When I said to him, he said, "Who do you want to sign?" I said, "I'd love Scott Parker. Go and get him then. Straight away, go and get him." So, we'd gone down the line and agreed everything. And then on deadline day, we got a phone call from Scotty saying Tottenham had made an offer and he was on his way to go and see him. And in fairness to the lad, he rang me at the end of the night, that deadline day night. He actually rang me and thanked me for trying to sign him, and he said he appreciated that. But that was the type of player I thought would have gone down well.
But of the players you got, I know one player causes more discomfort, shall I say, than any other, and that's Sean Wright-Phillips. The fact that he was on a 4-year deal, he's getting X amount of pounds a week. There's chat that he was offered to loan to various clubs and turned it down. How did you find him as a professional?
Well, I think I mentioned Sean in my book, and I don't really want to get into that tonight. I'm not coming along here to talk about the players that are still there under contract. I think if you read my book, that states what I feel about him as a professional.
Okay.
Neil, you've throughout your career, you've quite often been at clubs where they've been taken over. I know you've mentioned that, and there's been like a switch in owners. What changed at QPR when it was taken over? When I know you said it was very up and down when Flavio was there. What changed when Tony came in?
Well, Tony just wanted to do well. He was desperate to do well, really, and we needed an influx of players, and it was just a wasted summer. I could have gone away after the celebration. That was another thing. I was absolutely distraught, that we couldn't afford or didn't want to have a parade.
Didn't organise one.
I just thought it was the one opportunity to actually thank the fans, and I went to see the people. Not Tony. I went to see certain people in the offices that were involved with the finance, and they said that, first of all, they said that the council couldn't find a day, and they had to do this. I said, surely we can just have an open top ride, and it's not going to cost a fortune, but it wasn't allowed, and that. So that was a real. I thought that was a signal for me.
I think I speak for everybody here. That's the thing, that we never had a real chance to thank you for everything that you've done for us. And when you first got the job, we were deep in relegation trouble. In your wildest dreams, could you ever have imagined us winning the Championship the following season?
Yeah, I could imagine it in pre-season. Yeah, once we'd made the changes in the summer, once I'd seen what I could do with Adel. Once I knew if we could improve in certain areas, and then we came back and had a good pre-season, and so it was really good to know. I think the day the moment that I thought we'd go automatically get promoted is at one particular away game where, when the final whistle went, I turned to my assistant at that stage and just said, I'll tell you now, lad, we'll go up now. We'll go straight up. He went, what do you mean? He said, we were 2-0 down 5 minutes ago. I said, we will go up. You wait and see. The spirit at Derby was fantastic, yes. And then I had I think you get feelings when you've had promotions like I've had 7, and you get feelings when you've got a group that you think, because you don't need a group that's just okay on lovely summer evenings. Championship, you go to places like Scunthorpe and it's chucking it down with rain, and the dressing room, if I were playing QPR, we used to put a bucket of water down the walls before they arrived in the dressing room, and little things like that to welcome the southern softies. So it's it is like I say, a difficult league.
A couple of players this season have said, that it was always going to be a struggle in the Premier League because of pre-season. So would your advice for next year be go down to Cornwall?
Well, I just think you can. When you go to Cornwall, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly where I'm going to play, and it's a great environment for doing that training. Getting 1 or 2 new players mixing with the squad without pressure on them. And also, I know it sounds silly, but I also thought it was a great time for the fans. Yeah. But, a lot of fans with kids used to come down for a week in Cornwall, used to get in caravans. It didn't cost a lot of money. They used to stop here and just drive over. I made sure the games were quite close together. So the families used to come out, and we used to let them come and watch us train one day a week. One day we were there and make a bit of a day of it. And I think it just, the whole club came together. I just felt it was just a friendly family club. So not wrong with Cornwall pre-season.
Neil, we've got a question on Mixlr here, and we've got about 20 minutes left of this part of the podcast. Hopefully we will have time for a few questions in the pub and also through Mixlr. So if there's anything you want to ask Neil, get that ready for towards the end of this section. The Jersey guy wants to know, how hard do you think FFP will hit QPR?
Well, I'm not in the know-how for that, if I'm honest, so I haven't got a clue. That's
me neither.
It's no good me answering that.
Does anyone actually know what this means?
I don't even know what FFP stands for. I thought you were being a bit rude at the time. I thought I'd spelt it wrong.
Let me ask you then about the culture at QPR. This has come up a lot on message boards towards the end of the season, that there's somehow been kind of a loss of culture at QPR, and it's gone quite a long way from what many of us know the club to be, which is kind of that family club, the West London, being in touch with its roots in West London, getting that right first before kind of what happens on the pitch. Was that your experience when you were there, and do you think that has changed since? And what do you think the club needs to do to get back to what everybody feels were kind of those good and better times?
Well, I think the fans at QPR are pretty resilient, and I don't think they'll automatically expect that they're going to get straight back up, because I think most of them's quite got common sense, really, which is unusual for fans, if I'm honest. So
you met Paul?
It's a matter. I was warned about him at the back, by the way. They said, "Don't get involved with him." So, anyhow, I think that it's always important. Sometimes you forget about the youth system. We had it's quite difficult to bring players through into the team, especially at championship level. But I do think the time has come for a club like QPR or teams like that, rather than go down, spending the fortunes on this player and that. There are players around that you could pick up at a reasonable cost, and probably, in the 20 to 24 age group. And I think that's the time now to try and build a few like that. And the championship, at the same time, don't lessen your opportunity of getting back up, because everybody wants to get back into the Premier League. But there are good players around, but sometimes it might be more wise to invest in 400 or 500 grand in those kind of players in the Champion. Just take a sort of a step backwards at times.
And what about the youth system?
Well, I've got to say it's not the best of that I've seen coming through.
Why is that?
Well, I think because facility-wise, it's always been a battle, really. I mean, the coaches were fantastic when I were there. The coaches, Birch and Stevie. I think they, all the coaching staff were really keen. But it's difficult to sort of get players away from the other clubs around. London's everybody's after London, aren't they now? And now the top clubs, it's such a well, I'm discussing what's happened now with the lower clubs. The Premier League, they've taken over now, haven't they? Really, they signed one of the best players from a lower division club, and they can get him out for nothing now, or 20 grand or whatever. So the lower clubs, it's not getting the money either. It's a very difficult scenario now. But there are kids. I think you've got the scouting network's got to be good. There are free transfers and lads on that want to play. You've got to get lads who. I mean, if you ask somebody who watched that season what you liked about that season, I don't think we ever looked like we weren't going to win, even when we weren't winning. I think everybody expected, bloody hell, he'll turn it round, or the lads will turn it round, and to see people like, I thought it was a mistake that Jamie Mackie was allowed to go, because you need
massive mistake.
You need people like Jamie Mackie at your club, and yes, all right, you might be limited in certain things, but I think people like that epitomise what the crowd wants and want to put their hat on, sort of thing. Are you with me? And I think that's what's going to be needed this year. I'd like to see him bring him back and one or two others like that.
Can I just take you back to the Watford game?
You can.
When you were dancing on the pitch, or certainly on the sidelines, we were all up in the stands. There was QPR fans dotted all around the ground, having somehow managed to get in. I mean, during those celebrations, was the back of your mind, were you thinking, because of the Alejandro Forlan thing, were you thinking, are we up or not? Or were you confident that we were actually up?
No, I mean, from a manager's point of view, I thought, well, I can't do any more. From mathematically now we're up, so I've done my job. But with what was going off at the club with Flavio and Bernie and Gianni, who I love dearly, John, you just didn't know, really. It's all right. The only thing I could say is about 3 weeks before the end of the season, the journalist Sean Custis, I never forget, I know Sean quite well, and did a big headlines in the paper, that we were going to, a source told him that we were going to lose 9 points and get relegated, and not going to be in the playoffs, and, and I had to do it. Fortunately, I did a column in the Independent at that stage, and I put a source has told me that that's a load of bollocks. And I asked the Independent, could they put that without the bollocks in it? And anybody can say a source, can't they? Yeah. But I went to see the QC. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust anybody at all from what they were saying, because I just didn't know. So I asked if I could see the QC, and I went to see the QC, and I asked him, can you tell me straight what the situation is? And he went through everything and all the legal jargon and all what had happened before at different clubs and liking situations like that. And he said to me, I can assure you that there won't be points deducted. I think at the very most there'll be a fine and a reprimand. It just doesn't warrant points. I said, that's all I want to hear, son. Yeah. And I went back the next day, and I've got goose pimples now while I'm talking, and I sat the players down and I said to the players, listen, you've got to trust me now. I've been to see the top guy, and he said that, we've just got to get our house in order. We've got to get the points, and he'll do the rest. And that's what he did, and the last game. I mean, the Watford game was amazing, wasn't it? I can see the cross and I can see Tommy, but the fans, it was just a special day, really. And as a manager, that's what you dream about, days like that. And the last game, Leeds, I know we lost it, but I don't think anybody.
No,
when that
announcement
came out, and you saw Gianni running up and down that tunnel, I know, no point.
Did you know when the announcement came?
Well,
when the announcement came, did you know at the same time as everybody else? I mean, I was in the green in Shepherd's Bush. I mean, it was one of them Kennedy moments. You remember where you were?
Because they were,
and I was there, and what's his name? The bald bloke from the BBC came on and said,
Clem.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, he was there. Well, they all interviewed us coming into the ground, didn't they, about the point situation. I said, well, look, I've been told this, and I'm quite confident, and so it was always on the back of your mind. But then when that happened just before, I mean, the relief in the dressing room. We haven't said anything, but everything come out. And if I'm honest, I'm surprised any of them could run about. We were all so mentally deflated.
Yeah.
We've been through so much in 6 weeks that and it didn't matter anymore. I know it sounds silly, but the game didn't matter anymore, and it was just all the hard work and everything. It was just an amazing time, really, and no more than we deserve. I mean, Ali Forlan, bless him, to get his injury like he has as well. I mean, he's probably the best midfield player. He's another one like Adel. I loved it. Ali. I had one bust-up with him where he threw some at me. I think it was a sausage roll or something like that. but we made up straight away. And I had one bust up with him, and but what a gem of a player! I loved him, me Ali, and I wish he'd have played for me for a few more years.
But the thing is, Neil, I'm going to again talk about Watford. We did a special walk that day, myself and Chris, for the QPR Tiger Cub. So we walked all the way there, bacon, sunshine, everything. Can I just say, as a QPR fan, and I'm quite old and going bold, thank you so much for one of the best days of our life, and thank you so much for that season.
Thank you. I mean, I've got to say, after the Watford game, I'm not the kind of manager that sort of breaks down or out like that, but I remember, because after a game I always got them sat down after 5 minutes, and whether we lost or won, and then had a quick chat with them, and everybody was buzzing in the dressing room, and I calmed them down. I was just going to plan to say, well, listen, the hard work starts now, we've got to enjoy today, and blah blah blah. And I started talking, and I just filled up. I couldn't talk, and it was just amazing. I just thanked them all. I went through them all, and I went, the ones all that I knew, and individually went through them, and just thanked them all, and knew that they'd remember this day for the rest of their lives because it was something special.
This feels like a good time to go to questions from anyone else here in the pub. We've got about 10 minutes left.
Do you think they should come up here to the mic?
What we'll have to do is
if the QPR fans, they'll let us all be heard.
You'll have to shout the question out, and then for the sake of people...
No, come down. Come down and grab a bag.
Oh, Finney's got a roving mic, everybody. Watch out.
You have to come down here.
It's only roving to the front of the table, though.
It's an idea.
There we go.
Try your best.
Thanks. This is actually a general question about football. You've been in the game a long time. We've seen over the past few years in sport the amount of stuff, games gone in snooker and in cricket and even in lower leagues here. We've seen it happen in Italy and in Spain. I think we tend to be, in England, a bit arrogant, saying, oh, well, that happens over there. They're Latin countries. They do that because they cheat. Just look at Maradona. Do you find... I mean, what is your opinion about this in the English game? Do you ever find yourself looking at some bit of play thinking, like, that's not right, or like, what has he done there? Or do you ever find yourself thinking, and I'm not going way off on conspiracy theories, but do you think perhaps we are a bit naive?
I think he's saying, does match fixing happen in English football?
Yeah, no, I think, you can't say that because in English football, the two guys have just gone down for it, haven't they? Yeah. From the non-league. So,
from the non-league,
but I just think that it only happened to me once, and that was... I was asked to earn a few quid in China when I was at Sheffield United, and all I had to do was lose 3-1 to this Chinese team pre-season. So the guy asked, I said, well, we can't do that. I said, even if we wanted to, I said, my lads don't know how to do it like that. So anyhow, it went on, and they were a good side, but the president of this Chinese club was under a lot of pressure. They needed to win 3-1. So we kicks the game off, and they were so good we hardly touched the ball, and they were 2-0 up. Then we got a goal, and sod's law, they got a third goal. So we come off, and I was looking for the Chinese lad. I said, yeah, I've done it for you, son. But he didn't pay me. I think it was about 20 grand, something like that. And that was for a pre-season friendly game. But it wasn't to be.
Next question. Jim's got a question.
It's a very bad question time, I'm sorry.
Hiya. You talked about the Championship players like Derry, Hill, Kenny being really key. In my mind, they kept us up in the Premier League. Would we have just been better off not signing anyone in that August transfer window?
Well, I think everybody's right after the event, really. It's just that when you're there, as a manager, it's like no other league, the Premier League, because when the end of August comes, you're on your own till January. You can't go and get a loan player in or anything like that. And so all the top clubs are covered. But, when I was at Sheffield, we lost 2 centre-halves and a third one that could play centre-half in the space of a week in September. And we hadn't got a centre-half for 6 weeks. Well, you can't do that. You've got to have players in your 25 that can fill in if you get injury crises and all that. And so it just gave the other teams that come up a lot more advantage because they did all the signings and what have you. So I think if you look back in it, you just can't. You can't. You have to do what you can do. If some of the signings were wrong because they were quick, there were other good signings as well. But it's just the club or any football club, you have to do what you can at the time. Really, we needed players. Full stop.
Can I ask, you mentioned earlier on Wayne Routledge, who I thought was absolutely brilliant while he was playing for us at the club. Were you blocked from signing him just because of finances by Flavio? And
it was difficult. I wanted to sign Wayne, but he was, and he wanted to come as well. A London lad.
That's what we heard. We thought he
I know,
was fit.
And talking. Financially, they didn't want to spend any money on transfer fee. They didn't want to spend any money on wages. So in the end, I said to Wayne, "You've just got to look after yourself."
So he's one of the players that came out to your place.
Yeah.
And told him
he didn't come out to my place because I'd already spoke to him at the training ground.
Obviously,
yeah. And he wanted to come. Without a shadow of a doubt, he would have signed. His mother would have brought him.
Because I think we missed him that next season. I think we did miss him.
Oh, absolutely.
He fitted in really well at QPR.
Because he was a bit of quality as well. All right, didn't score enough goals, and funnily enough, we still text each other now and then. I'm not into this Twitter lark, and all these Facebook things. I know Tony is. He used to text me about 3 o'clock in the morning and somebody agent to give him a player and this player and what's he like. Half of them I'd never heard of. But that's how it is nowadays, isn't it? Social media. There's more players talking to chairman and things like that now, which is difficult for old-fashioned managers like me. I think you want to really run it how you see fit, but it's their prerogative now when they put the money in. But Wayne was definitely one we wanted to sign.
I read the book, by the way. It's fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We've got time for 2 more questions before we finish this section.
Hi Neil.
Hi.
If you were Chris Ramsey at the start of next season, would you try and persuade Adel Taarabt to stay at QPR and be our talisman for next season?
I think the manager has to look around and he'll know what he wants from a player. He'll have an idea what he can get out of him. He's fortunate in the fact that he's been at the club now a number of months. You've got to have that grounding before the summer to get to get to grip. So there's only Chris knows that. And like I say, it's a challenge with Adel.
But would you?
Well, I mean, it's different because I know what I can get out of him and how to deal with him. But it is difficult, and some of the lies I had to tell Adel, and some of the lies I had to tell the board and the press. I mean, unbelievable. But we got there.
He's a class act that gets out of the Championship, though, again, wouldn't he?
It is, yeah. It's just like I say. It's just if Chris thinks he can. I mean, he is you don't get a problem with him. Yes, training-wise is difficult some days because he's been up till 4 o'clock. But you have to understand. For me, it's what he does on a Saturday. And Keith Curle at Sheffield United, I had an email one day. Keith was playing for me centre-half, and I had an email one night from a director addressed to the chairman. The chairman forwarded it on. Could the manager answer me why Mr. Curle, one of his players, was at this club at 2:30 in the morning with a pint of beer and a blonde-haired lady around his shoulder smoking a cigarette? And I looked at the thing and so I emailed him back. I wish the director would get his facts right, I said. It was a half a pint. But Keith Curle never trained, but he was my best player on a Saturday, week in, week out.
Hi Neil.
Hi.
I was going to ask, your opinion on Joey Barton, but having heard your Sean Wright-Phillips response, I might say.
Well, I think on the day that they're excellent players, but I don't think it's for me to talk about them tonight when they're at the club, and the contract situations nobody knows with the contracts being up.
No, absolutely. So a wider question: what's your opinion on players and the use of social media and the Twitter? And as an old-fashioned manager, would you have some kind of code of conduct?
Well, it's just difficult. You can't have a code of conduct now. It's what is it, lack of freedom or whatever they call it. It's something that's in now, and unfortunately for managers, there's so much happening now. What chairmen don't realise at times is when you allow a player to talk to you, it undermines the manager so much, and then players get a lot of power, and then when you leave them out or they're not happy, it causes so much hassle and so many problems for managers. So I'm not surprised that there's going to be probably coaches in the future rather than managers. Are you with me in that respect? But it's now it used to be just 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 people telling a manager where it's going wrong on a Saturday. All of a sudden you've got radio this and radio that. Everyone's, when it first come out, it was at Sheffield, these phone-ins. The first phone call I ever listened to at Radio Sheffield was, the manager has not got a clue. His tactics were a disgrace. He doesn't know what day it is. He's got to go, hasn't he? And the guy said, you've got your opinion. You came down today and saw the game. No, I didn't, he said. No, I didn't come to the game. I thought, oh my God, here we go, So to get, you get phone-ins like that, and you get the same people on them, and you get television programs showing everything. It is so much difficult nowadays with technology, and you can't stop them. My one grievance, if I'm honest with the modern day player, is that I've tried at the two clubs I've just been at in the Premier League to get players to come off the bus without their headphones on so they could sign a few autographs. I just don't think it does any harm to sign 2 or 3 young lads' autographs.
We got time. We've got 2 minutes left of this part, so we'll go to the last question very quickly.
All right, Neil. Over the years, we know you've had such a great relationship with referees. So, I'd like to ask, which referees did you like refereeing your games, and which referees you didn't?
I struggle to remember any, really, if I'm honest. Listen, all the referees, I always had a chat with them after the game as well, and I tried to be constructive on my reports, which nobody, it didn't go. I used to send referees copies of my report when I complimented them and said something, and I used to put at the end of it, P.S. Don't let anybody know I've complimented you, because it gets me a bad name. But they were good. There were good referees, but Mike Riley's in charge of the referees now, and for me, Mike was one of the poorest referees. And I think that Mike's getting referees almost like mechanical referees. And my dad was a Class 1 referee, but he'd never get to the top because he was a bit like me. He used to say a few words to the players at the same time. But for me, the one rule that the top referees nowadays still do is they use common sense. And when I hear assessors and people now at these referees meetings saying they'll get marked down for that, for not doing this or not doing that, for me, if you're in charge of a game and you've got the players on your side, to hell with bloody things like that, it comes down to common sense. And so the young refs, Michael Oliver, he had a bloody nightmare against us at Villa. He gave a penalty against, and then fortunately we managed to get an equaliser, Helgeson, last minute at Loftus Road, and he gave a penalty for nothing, and when he saw it, apologised to me, But he's a top he's going to be a top referee. It's just that some of them have chips on their shoulders, and it's a good referee. You never see him, and I think nowadays the build-up and a referee having an agent. Come on.
You're joking.
Having a private number plate, some of them. I've got one, by the way.
Just one very quick question before we go, Neil. If circumstances arose, would you ever consider managing QPR again?
In my dreams, Yeah, I often wake up thinking it'd be nice that. I think it's just my wife now has asked me, please, can we have a bit of time? I mean, I've got far more interesting things to do. I went swimming with the dolphins about 6 weeks ago in Mexico. Yesterday I went paintballing. It was my son's birthday, and I've never seen a son's birthday for about, that's 14. And I went paintballing, and I didn't do bad, actually. I killed a few of the buggers, I'll tell you that now. I kept imagining they were referees. Right. So, it's... but if I can help in any way, I would do, that.
I think a role of director of football somewhere shared with somebody else. Now, Neil, when we got everyone here remembers when we got relegated, don't you? The first time from the Premiership, and yeah, from the yeah. Thanks, Chris. You're all right.
It's his accent, isn't it? I know. Don't worry. The guy said up there, you'll never bloody understand a word he said.
That was his mum. It was a long dream, and we spent many years in the wilderness. We had administration, we had so many bad years, and you came along and you gave us a reason to be happy, and I think everyone should stand up and applaud this man for what he's done for QPR. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The QPR podcast is a West 12 Media and Burble Media production.
QPR, Chris Rangers are on the up and up. QPR.